Hey guys, welcome back to another one. My name is Braden and I'm an artist. So, how to prep a portrait? This is the question. Now you're wondering, okay, cool, now that I know how to draw a generic Loomis head, how do I look at a reference photo and render my portrait using that method, but making it look more like the reference photo? That's what this video is all about. So, what to expect. In this one, I'm going to be taking you through and I'm going to show you how you can very easily draw a circle, especially if you struggle with that, with a compass. And then once you have your basic circle drawn out, I'm going to show you how you can identify the way the eyes lay on your reference photo and bring out that angle. Once you have that angle recognized, it's easy to place the side plane, which is signified by the oval. And then identifying your horizontal axis, which ties into the brow line. Once we pull the brow line over, then that makes it really easy to punch in our hairline. And then I'm going to be showing you a trick where you can actually use your pencil and you can use it to gauge the distance for the rule of thirds on your face. I'm going to be showing you basic tricks of how you can frame the bridge of your nose and then of course solidify the brow line. And then once that's done, bringing out the nose, right? The nose is that center focal point of the face that you can build everything else around. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that and just getting that basic two-dimensional shape of your reference's facial structure. We're going to be doing 4 reference photos from multiple angles. That way you can hopefully walk away from the video and have a pretty decent gist of how to approach other references that you want to draw moving forward. So before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, and then turn on all those notifications so that you never miss when my latest and greatest videos hit the channel here at Messer Creations. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so we have our compass, and I'm going to set this compass to a 1.5, and then we're going to place it right smack dab in the middle of the paper. And then from there, we're just going to press real lightly, and we're going to get our circle established. For those of you that struggle with drawing a circle, just use a compass, and then eventually, over time, practice drawing your circle by hand. But there's no shame in using a tool until you are able to build your confidence and your muscle memory to do it manually, okay? And then right here, this reference photo's head is slightly tilted, so we want our side plane to reflect that with our oval. And then it's at a bit of an angle, so we're actually going to cut off a piece of the head on this side. And then the eyes, they're resting something like that. So once we are confident in the angle of the eye, then we're going to establish our horizontal axis. And then we're going to place our temple plane here. And what that does, that effectively elongates the head. And then we have our brow line here. And then at the top of the oval, right around the center, that's going to be our hairline. And then the bottom of the oval, kind of bring this over from the bottom roughly. And in the center, somewhere right here, that is the bottom of the nose. Okay, so we have our 2 sections, and what you can do, a little trick, is you can lay your pencil on the paper like this, pinch it, and give yourself a rough estimate right here. And then right at the bottom of that, that's roughly where the chin would be. Okay. And then one of the things that I like to do is once we've established all of that, I like to place the ear. And the reason why I like to place the ear is because you can use the ear as an anchor point for the rest of the features of the face. I will say that when it comes to drawing in the overall structure of a portrait, it's not necessarily the basic shape of the face that is difficult. It is the placement relative to the basic shape of the face for the features that can be a little dicey. So what I like to do is once that ear is established and I have pinpointed roughly the bottom of the chin, I can pull my jawline down and then I can pull it over and connect it with the bottom of the chin, just like this here, something like this, right? And remember, essentially what we're doing here is we are prepping this portrait, right? We're framing exactly where we want the features to go, okay? Yeah, so something like that. And then what I like to do is I like to punch in what they call the bridge of the nose. So something just like this. And then once I have the bridge established, I like to take my pencil and just pull this over here. And what this does is this effectively solidifies the brow line immediately above the eye sockets, okay? And then right here, I like to establish the planes of the nose. So regardless of how the nose looks in the reference photo, you need to have a good sense of the planes of this specific feature of the face, okay? Now, one of the reasons why I'm starting with the nose before I start with the eyes or the mouth is because the nose, like the ear on the side of the head, is very much a focal point. You can build everything around the nose if you establish it first. So these are just rough planes here. We've got the bridge of the nose up top, and then what they call the ridge of the nose down to the bottom plane. And then once we have that established, right at the bottom of the bridge, you can line that up with the bottom of the eye sockets and kind of pull this over just like this, right? And that kind of gives you a rough guesstimate of the eye sockets themselves, right? Where exactly you would place those eyes relative to the nose and to the ear. And then right here, this is what they call a rhythm line, right? If we're going to pull from the Riley method. Rhythm lines are essentially planes of the face, but they are almost subconscious planes of the face. They are meant to give you a subconscious structure of that underlying form, which is a rough underlying form, right? So like this, for example, this is also another rhythm line borrowed from the Riley method. And then here, I'll show you this one here. So then there's another rhythm line that comes in the bottom of the bridge of the nose and then down all the way to the jawline, right? And this kind of, essentially, as you can see, it starts to elongate that face, right? We start to have a sense of height. And then once we have that one placed, then there's another one that comes up. And then this one gives us a sense of the forehead, right? The plane of the forehead, something like this. And then once we have that established, we're going to pull this down, and we want to identify the top of the upper lip and then the bottom of the lower lip. One of the reasons why I established that rhythm line for the chin plane is because if you have that established, that actually makes it a little easier to pinpoint exactly where the bottom of that bottom lip is, right? And then, of course, what we're going to do is we are going to cement where this hair is, right? We want to bring in the hair. I'm not going to get too fancy with the details. This is very much just to give us a sense of shape, right? Shape lends itself well to proportion, but we haven't started to mess with volume. We haven't started to mess with details, nothing like that. This is purely a proportion game at this stage in the drawing process. This is the hardest part, okay? No matter who you talk to, anyone that's ever tried to draw a portrait understands that to start to build proportions in their proper context as far as the reference photo is concerned is the single hardest part. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show you guys how you could start to approach drawing your portraits. This gives you a starting point. Just pull this down like this. There we go, something rough like that. Okay. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my Pentel click eraser and we're just going to blast some of this here. We're just going to kind of erase some of this, right? That Loomis method is just a blueprint, right? It's It's the skeleton of your drawing. So once you have pinpointed exactly where your features are, like your hair and your brow line and your eye sockets, your nose, your jaw, you don't necessarily need these lines anymore, right? So we're just going to get rid of them. Yeah, something just like that. All right, and that gives you a rock solid foundation. Okay, so moving on to the second one. We have a different reference photo here, but the approach is the same, okay? Compass, basic circle, two-dimensional shape. The eyes do something like this at this angle, okay? So what we want to do is we want to cut off the sides of our Loomis head. So what exactly does that look like? Well, if the head is slightly tilted, we're going to bring it in something like this, okay? And also, don't think that when you're drawing like this that you draw on the paper and maybe your planes are off and you're like, oh God, that's it, I got to start over. No. Drawing is a lot like dancing, right? If you misstep, simply adjust your footing and continue. And just hope that nobody saw, right? I like to call them adjustments. Bob Ross called them happy accidents. I don't like to think of the creative process as an accident in any form. I like to think of it as dancing, and you just need to adjust. That's all you have to do. You need to flow with it. And that's what we're doing. Something like this. We're just going to kind of shave off the sides here. This is where our eye line is, so our side planes would be something like this. And then, of course, we can just kind of pull this over, right? The brow line. Let's establish that. And there it is. And our hairline is roughly somewhere up here, because that's the top of our side planes, right? That's the top of our ovals. And then our nose line is somewhere right in here. Right? That aligns nicely with the bottom of the oval. And then we're going to measure it manually, right? So we're going to take our pencil, something like that. That's about equal. And that's about equal, which means the bottom of our chin is roughly right about there. Yes, very nice. Okay, and so now that we have that established, what are we going to do? That's right. We're going to draw in our ear, just like this. Something just like this. Don't press hard, guys. Right? Throughout this whole process when you are establishing your portrait, just very light pressure control. That way, if you need to make adjustments, and trust me, you will, you can. And it's at no detriment to your paper, right? You'll be able to retrieve the high value, lift that charcoal or that graphite or whatever the medium is that you're using off the paper, and adjust. And then we're going to pull this up just like this. This reference photo has a fairly long square chin, so we want to make sure that we reflect that in the framing, right? In the prep of this portrait. Pull this up, something like that. And then, of course, pull this down, right? The jaw kind of extends down from the ear, and then we're going to pull this over. Connect it, right? Something just like that. Very nice. Very nice. And also, guys, like if you go over these lines again and again, right, especially if you use the overhand method like I'm using right now for drawing versus the 3-point method, which is the way they teach you how to write in school. The overhand method is very effective, especially when it comes to drawing portraits and sketching in general. But we've established the bridge of the nose, and now we're going to pull our lines over, and that gives us a nice foundation for the top of our eye sockets. We have the basic plane of the nose here, something just like this, right? And this is what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to start thinking of your reference photos in this manner, right? When you look at a reference photo, think of the planes of what you're dealing with. We're going to pull the ridge of the nose down from the bridge of the nose. And then right at the bottom of the bridge where it connects to the ridge. We're going to pull this over just like that, okay? And that gives us kind of the rough foundation at the bottom of our eye socket. And you can do this too. I know I didn't do this in the first one, but you can do this. You can pull this down, and that kind of really gives you a sense of where those temples begin. And then, of course, our rhythm line here extends from the center of the vertical and the horizontal axis. Pull this down and over, right? And then, of course, we have our rhythm line here that we are borrowing from the Riley method, something roughly like this, okay? And remember, we're establishing that first, and that'll help us identify the bottom of the lips. And then, of course, we have this other rhythm line that we're going to borrow from the Riley method, something just like this. And this effectively elongates the face from the bottom of the eye sockets to the jawbone. And then we have another one here, and this one effectively gives us the plane of the forehead, right? You don't have to place these rhythm lines in your sketch if you don't want to, but I want to show you. I want to show you them. I want to talk to them. I want you to at least know that they are something that you can use for basic framing and prepping if you wish. So we have the bottom and the top of the lip, and then roughly right in line with the center of the eye here with this specific reference photo, we have the edges of the lips. Like I said, this video is not about the features. I'm not going to be detailing anything. I'm trying to give you basic framework for how you can prep a reference photo, right? And then, of course, what you do from here is up to you. That neck is something like this, right? It's kind of at an angle, kind of cocked, and then we're going to pull this up over here like this. And we're going to pull this like this. We're going to give our subject some shoulders here. Something like that. Wonderful. And then he's got some crazy hair, so we're gonna punch that in, right? And whenever you sketch in hair, don't worry about each individual strand of hair, right? Just if you notice when hair lays a certain way, it kind of clumps together in basic shapes. So identify the basic shape and just kind of more or less place it on the head where you think it should go. And then all of a sudden, what you're going to start seeing is that portrait is really going to start making sense, right? It's not going to be so much a floating head after the hair is established and the shoulders and the neck of the subject are established as well. So just keep that in mind. And then here we can go in and erase some of these foundational lines that we laid with the Loomis head, right? With our compass. Let's get rid of that here. Of course, the Adam's apple, something like this. I always like to do a V, and that's pretty much where I leave it, right? Something like that. Okay. Reference number 3. Same thing. Different reference, same approach, right? Every portrait you'll ever do starts with a circle. Then the eyes are fairly straight across here. The head is tilted almost at a 3/4 turn. So if that's the case, then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to establish our side plane here, right? Something like this. Roughly like that, okay. We have our vertical axis right here. And then our horizontal axis, which we already know, follows the angle of the eyes. So, and then our temple plane, right? It's a 3/4 turn, so the temple plane is useful with a reference at this angle. And we're going to pull the brow line over, something like that. The hairline's up here, yeah. And then from here to here. Once you start to get confident with where to place your features, you're not necessarily going to need to measure everything out, right? But we can. So let's see here. There's section 1, section 2, section 3. Bottom of that chin is somewhere right about there. And then the ear, right? Once we have our sections solidified, then we like to place our ear in this bottom left quadrant of the side plane. The ear is something roughly like this, okay? And then once we have that established, we can pull the beginning of the jaw down from the earlobe. And then we can take our pencil, the overhand method, we can pull it over and connect it to our guesstimate of where the bottom of the chin is, okay? And that's the biggest thing that I want you to pull away from this video, guys, is that I want you to realize that when you draw something, you can have a formula, right? You can have this basic approach, but the Loomis method gives you just enough structure, but not too much of it, so you can still have creative freedom and put a little bit of your own style in your portrait. That's why we like this method. None of us have life figured out, much less how to draw a portrait, right? So it's okay. It's not a big deal. All right, so once we have that established, I'm going to punch in the bridge of the nose, right? Then we're going to pull this over, beef up the top of the brow line. There it is. And the bottom of the bridge, we're going to pull this over. There it is. Yes. Wonderful. So that's where our eyes are roughly going to go. And then the nose. We have our bottom plane, something like this. It's going to go up. And because the nose is at a slight 3/4 turn angle, we're going to pull this up like that. And there's our bottom plane. There's our bottom side plane. And then from there, we can sketch in the nose. There it is. Something like that. We have the ridge of the nose. And then, of course, pull this down. The top of our upper lip somewhere right there. And let's place our rhythm line for the chin from Riley. Something roughly like that. And while we're on rhythm lines, let's go ahead right to the edge of that rhythm line comes the cheek plane. And then, of course, right to the bottom of the nose bridge. This elongates our face for us. Wonderful. Then we're going to pull up. We're going to give ourselves the plane of the forehead, something like this. Okay. There we are. And that effectively elongates the face from the eye sockets down and from the eye sockets up. And then our subject has their hairline, so let's go ahead and place that. Something like this. And their neck pulls from the ear down to their collar. And over. There we are. And the collar extends from right about here over. I'm not going to worry about drawing her fingers. I'm just going to punch in the collar. And then that hairline extends kind of roughly just like this. And then connects. There, it kind of goes up like this. Just punch in like a basic, like two-dimensional outline, right? Just something rough, kind of like that. And up, yeah. It doesn't have to be too crazy. Just as long as you have a basic sense of the overall shape that you're going to be working with when you start to build your values and actually go in and place your features and start to make it truly reflect the reference photo, right? So, and then what you can do is you can start to go in with your pencil. And once you're confident that you like the proportions that you've sketched for yourself, then you can start to go in like this and you can start to streamline exactly where those boundaries of your basic shape are, okay? Just go over wherever you think they are, just like this. And then all of a sudden, you're really getting that exact sketch that you want. Then that collar comes down something like this. I don't want this to be a floating head, so I'm gonna give him a shoulder here, and then kind of extend this out this way. Something like that. All right, last one. So, you guessed it, basic circle. All right, this subject is looking almost completely profile. We have a slight angle that we're dealing with, so the eyes look something like that. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to place our side plane, right? And try not to get hung up on the fact that your side plane needs to be picture perfect, right? The side plane is meant to really kind of give you an understanding of the angle that you're working with, right? The angle is important because of where you're going to be placing the framework for everything else. So a lot of young artists, they get hung up on the fact that, oh, you know, my oval's not a perfect oval. It's like, irregardless of angle, don't worry about that. Right? You should be drawing at least half a dozen portraits a day anyway, just rough sketches. You know, we're not going to be winning any awards with them, but it's the act of drawing and understanding the basic approach over and over and over again that we're after as artists, right? As artisans, it's not what you say or what you think you'll do, it's what you actually do, right? It's the action of drawing, and that's what we want to become familiar with. So, and this one's kind of interesting because even though we're going to identify the rough spacing that we want, right? Hairline, brow line, nose line to the bottom of our chin. Notice how the chin's actually indented from the nose. So we actually want to pull this over a little bit, right? Something like this. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video, is I want to take the basic approach of Loomis, you know, infused with a little bit of Riley Method. And I wanted to use reference photos and show you how you can slightly tweak them to whatever it is that you're actually referencing, right? I know in some of my Loomis Method videos, like, I show you how to draw a very, very basic Loomis head, right? And a lot of you guys are like, oh, well, you know, how do you actually use this when working with a reference in question? And so this is how you do it. You know, the Loomis Method can give you a basic approach, right? It can give you a basic structure, but at the end of the day, what makes art and what makes artists stand out from others is their ability to look at reference photos and make those subtle adjustments that a basic method just simply can't give you on a whim, and make it look like the reference photo, right? But just like this, we're going to establish that hair, right? And then once we have that drawn in, what I want to do is, her jawline is fairly soft here, so we're just going to pull this like that and then kind of connect it to the bottom of the ear, something like that. Okay, and now that we have that established, her nose is protruding out. It's the farthest point, so I want to establish that first. Okay, so we have our planes, and then roughly right about here, that's about the center of where that eye socket would be. So here's the bridge on top of the ridge, and then here's our eye socket, right? Roughly something like this. Like I said, don't get hung up on the details of it. You need to establish the planes first. Details come later. And there's the forehead roughly. Here's the other side of the nose bridge. And then we pull this over. There's the top of our brow line. From there, once that's established, we can easily punch in the eyebrows. We have the bottom of the eye socket, which is from the bottom of the nose bridge. And then from here, we're going to pull this down. And because the way her chin is, I'm just going to pull this and then just bring it up like that, right? All right, and then here is our rhythm line, right? Something roughly like that. And then if that's the rhythm line, then the top and bottom of the lips would be somewhere right about here. And from there, there's the corner of the mouth, right? So we've effectively framed the mouth with where we'd want to place it. And then here's our cheek plane, right? So one of the essential rhythm lines. Something like that. That elongates the face. And here's our other rhythm line. Here's our forehead line. Something just like that. Okay. So now that we have all that established, we can go back in with our erasers and we can get rid of the structure of the Loomis head, which gave us the foundation to kind of build everything else off of, right? But effectively, we have prepped this portrait, so now we have everything that we need to be able to go in and start to, build values, actually draw in our features, make sure that it looks like our reference photo. Something like this, you can go in, you can start to round things out, you can start to place nostrils, you can start to solidify the actual edge of the chin, of the nose, of the neck. You can start to mess with your low values and start to build those up. Anything that you will. This is one of the really cool things that I enjoy about drawing portraits, is it's very much a step-by-step process. But just like anything, it's starting, right? A lot of people look at a reference photo for a portrait and they're like, where do I even begin? Right? So hopefully this video gave you, a solid understanding of, okay, well, this is how I would begin this, right? The rest is really up to you as far as, how you want to continue to develop your portrait, but at least now you have a solid foundation. Okay. Well, I will say that if you liked this video, I am on Skillshare. I have a portrait drawing series on Skillshare, in fact, where I take you through and teach you how to draw basic statues with sketching. It's pretty cool. Check it out. I'll have the link in the description of the video. Also, if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you supported me on Patreon. It helps to sustain the brand long term. Stay happy, stay healthy, and remember, never stop drawing.